in Mago Reddit. Today's story is...
My daughter abandoned her 6-month-old baby to go out partying, and 6 years later she showed up on my doorstep in her wedding dress, demanding that her daughter accept her. I need to share something that has been weighing on my mind and in my heart for a long time. It's about my daughter Haley, 26, and my granddaughter Gigi, who is now 6. Honestly, this has been one of the most difficult and emotionally draining situations I have ever had to face in my life. To put things in context, Haley was just 19 when she became pregnant with Gigi. She was still at university, just beginning to discover her identity and her goals in life. When she broke the news of the pregnancy to her boyfriend at the time, he simply disappeared. He wasn't ready to be a father and decided to cut off all contact with both the baby and Haley. It was devastating to see her go through that, but Haley showed determination. She assured me that she wanted to keep her baby, raise her, and start the family she had always dreamed of. I trusted her. I wanted to believe her. I had lost my husband a few years earlier, but I was in a good financial position. I worked as an accountant and knew I could help her. I promised Haley I would be by her side no matter what. I offered to help look after the baby so she could finish her studies and build a stable future for both her and Gigi. She was my daughter and I loved her deeply. At that moment, I was convinced that we could move forward together. Gigi arrived in the spring of 2018. She was an absolutely perfect baby, healthy, cheerful, and full of vitality. At first, Haley seemed to be adjusting well to motherhood. She was juggling college and caring for Gigi, and I really thought she would be able to cope, but as time went on, I began to notice small changes in her behavior. When Gigi was about 6 months old, Haley started spending more and more time away from home. She would tell me that she was going to the library to study or that she was working on group projects for college, but her explanations didn't add up. I found out from friends or neighbors that she had been out with her college friends, attending parties, or just hanging out with them. It was clear that neither college nor Gigi were her priorities. At first, I tried to be understanding. She was still very young, and I understood that she had had to mature quickly when she became a mother. I thought she needed some time to reconnect with herself, but the nights she came home late turned into prolonged absences, and, before I knew it, she hardly ever came home at all. Haley would show up maybe once or twice a week. Sometimes she would pick up some clean clothes or ask me for money, but that was it. She wasn't there for Gigi. She wasn't there for the diaper changes, the sleepless nights, or the important developmental milestones. She didn't go to the doctor's appointments or deal with the daily difficulties. I ended up taking care of absolutely everything. I was the one who fed Gigi, bathed her, and rocked her to sleep when she cried. I was the one who taught her to walk, who clapped and celebrated when she took her first steps. I was the one who took her to preschool on her first day and stayed with her until she felt safe enough to let go of my hand. Haley, for her part, seemed to have completely disengaged. She was not cruel or inconsiderate towards Gigi. She was simply not present, and when she did show up, she gave more the impression of being an occasional visitor in our lives than Gigi's mother. She would hold her for a few minutes, take a few photos for her social networks, and then leave again. I tried to talk to Haley about this situation on numerous occasions. I told her that she could help her get back to her studies or even be more present in Gigi's life, but she always ignored my words or made excuses. It was as if she wanted the title of mother without any of the responsibilities that come with it. By the time Gigi was a toddler, it was clear that I had become her primary caregiver. She turned to me when she needed comfort, when she felt sick, or when she wanted to share a funny story. I became her rock, and while I wouldn't trade that bond for the world, the experience was bittersweet. It wasn't supposed to be me in this role, but Haley. Looking back, it's hard not to experience a mixture of conflicting emotions. I feel angry with Haley for shirking her responsibilities, but I also feel heartbroken for her. She's missed out on so many moments she can never get back, and although I have done everything I can to give Gigi the love and stability she deserves, there is a part of me that wishes Haley had stepped up. Not just for Gigi, but for herself. I didn't want to make Haley feel guilty. She was my daughter, and I understood that she was young and still trying to find her way, but it became increasingly difficult to ignore the situation. I tried to talk to her, and she became increasingly defensive. She claimed that she needed to build a future for herself, that she deserved to have a life of her own, and that I should stop judging her. Every time she said those words, It felt like a stab in the heart. She didn't even consider the impact her actions had on Gigi. I didn't want to push her further away, so I kept quiet, but it wasn't easy. I started to notice that Gigi was calling me Mom instead of Grandma. At first I tried to correct her, but then I realized that Haley wasn't even around enough to notice. Gigi was used to me being the one there for her, and I wasn't going to make her feel bad about that, but it was a tricky situation. I knew that Haley was still Gigi's mother, and that she deserved to have a relationship with her, but how could I encourage Gigi to bond with a woman who had never been present in her life? The situation worsened when Haley dropped out of college. She moved in with some friends and began to lead the kind of carefree and irresponsible life that seemed to be her priority. She spent more and more time partying, meeting new people, and living as if she had absolutely no responsibilities. I was left picking up the pieces of what was left. I made sure Gigi had everything she needed. I enrolled her in a good preschool. I made sure she was healthy, happy, and growing properly. I even enrolled her in dance classes, something Haley had always talked about but for which she had never found time. I loved Gigi deeply. I was determined to give her the life she deserved, even if it meant doing it all on my own. By the time Gigi turned 5, I had resigned myself to the fact that Haley would never be the kind of mother Gigi needed. I had accepted that it would just be Gigi and me, and that was fine with me. I loved being her grandmother, but it wasn't just about that. I was the one who had raised Gigi. I had given up my own life to make sure she had everything she needed. I had sacrificed everything for her, and I didn't regret it for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, Haley started to appear more often. I didn't understand why, but she started to show up with her new fiancé, James, 32. James is a successful real estate developer, and I had never heard Haley speak so positively about anyone in her entire life. For the first time in years, Haley seemed to want to be part of Gigi's life. She brought gifts for Gigi, tried to spend time with her, and acted as if everything was perfectly fine. But nothing was fine. Gigi showed no interest. She kept her distance from Haley, and she couldn't blame her for that. Gigi didn't know this woman who had suddenly appeared in her life. She had no connection to her, and that's when Haley started to show signs of frustration. I could see it in her eyes. She tried to get closer to Gigi, but she hid behind me, holding my hand as if I were the only person she trusted. That hurt Haley, but it didn't stop her. Instead of acknowledging her years of absence, Haley started to blame me. She claimed that I was turning Gigi against her and brainwashing her. I tried to stay out of it, but I knew deep down that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't trying to turn Gigi against her. But Gigi wasn't a child who would simply forget everything that had happened. I didn't know Haley as a mother. I knew her as a stranger who came in and out of her life only when it suited her. Everything came to a head during the rehearsal dinner for Haley's wedding. I had asked Gigi to be the flower girl, and after much persuasion and gentle encouragement on my part, Gigi had reluctantly agreed. But even before the dinner, I could tell that she was not comfortable with the situation. The whole scenario seemed forced. Gigi and Haley did not have the kind of relationship in which this would feel natural or joyful. There was no smooth connection between mother and daughter as one might expect. Instead, Gigi seemed to be on display, as if she were part of some larger narrative that Haley was trying to construct. When the rehearsal dinner began, there was already a certain tension in the air. Gigi stayed close to me, quiet and reserved, as she often is when she is unsure of her surroundings. Then Haley got up to give a speech. At first, it sounded conventional. She talked about family, about how important this new chapter in her life was, but as she went on, her tone changed markedly. She began to cry, and, before I knew it, she was entering territory I had never anticipated. She talked about how disconnected she felt from Gigi, and how difficult it was to feel like a stranger in her own daughter's life. Then she went even further and openly accused me, in front of everyone present, of having manipulated Gigi to turn her against her. She claimed that I had stolen Gigi's love and usurped her place as her mother. Her voice broke as she cried and looked directly at me, making it very clear who she blamed for her pain. She was publicly humiliating me in front of all the guests, James, his family, his friends. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach, but more than that, I was furious. Haley's words were imbued with a sense of entitlement, as if she had not made any mistakes, as if she were the victim of some great injustice. And worst of all, Gigi was sitting right there listening to every word. I couldn't stay silent. I had held back for so long, but in that moment, everything came out. I stood up, not caring that it was her rehearsal dinner or that it was supposed to be a celebration. I was tired of playing along. I told her the truth clearly and directly. I reminded her of every moment she had missed, every birthday, every Christmas, every school performance, and every important achievement. I told her how I had chosen parties, friends, and my own freedom over being a mother. I made it perfectly clear. How I had been the one who stayed up with Gigi when she was sick, who helped her with her homework, who celebrated her achievements. I told her that being a mother is not something you can pick up again when it suits you. You can't adopt the role of victim when you were the one who decided to walk away. The room fell silent. Haley was crying harder now, but I couldn't stop. I wasn't yelling. I was just being firm, direct, and honest. I told her that I hadn't taken her place as a mother. She gave up that place when she chose to prioritize herself over Gigi. Now, just because she was getting married and wanted this moment to be perfect, she thought she could rewrite the past. Things don't work like that. Now I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. Haley has been texting me nonstop, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas. James called me, trying to mediate and suggesting family therapy, but I'm not sure that's the solution. Gigi has been more attached to me since all this happened, and she keeps asking if she still has to participate in the wedding. I don't know what to do. I've been Gigi's mother for most of her life. I have raised her, I have loved her, and I have sacrificed for her. I want her to have a relationship with Haley, but I also want to protect her from getting hurt. Haley is not ready to be the mother she should have been years ago, and it's not my fault, but I am caught in the middle of all this, trying to do what is best for Gigi, and I'm not sure I know how to handle this situation without causing more damage. Update 1. Hello everyone. I didn't expect my post to have as much of an impact as it has had. First of all, thank you so much for all the support. Reading your comments has been both a comforting and overwhelming experience, but I really appreciate the advice and different perspectives you have offered. A lot has happened since the rehearsal dinner incident last night, and I've been taking time to process everything that's happened. Things have been intense, to say the least, and I wanted to share an update with you all. After the drama at the rehearsal dinner, I decided to take a step back and focus on Gigi and myself. Haley, however, has been relentless. My phone has been ringing nonstop with her calls and messages. 1 minute she's calling me selfish and saying I'm ruining everything, and the next, she's leaving long, emotional voicemails where she cries and begs me to attend the wedding. She keeps repeating that she just wants to reconnect with Gigi and that this wedding is the perfect time to do it. And James, he's been trying to be the voice of reason, but honestly, he seems more interested in keeping the peace for Haley's sake than in really listening to me or considering what's best for Gigi. He said things like, Haley is really trying, and this wedding could be a new beginning for all of us. But I can't believe it. A new beginning doesn't magically happen at a wedding. It happens through constant actions, not big empty gestures. The hardest part has been witnessing how all this is affecting Gigi. She has been unusually quiet since the rehearsal dinner, and also very clingy, which is not like her. She keeps asking heartbreaking questions like, why was mommy crying? And am I in trouble? It tears me up inside, because none of this is her fault, and she's carrying too much weight for such a young girl. She should be worrying about what color sprinkles to put on her ice cream, not this complicated mess. A couple of days ago, I sat down with her to talk, and I assured her that she didn't have to do anything she didn't want to do, including being the flower girl. She seemed relieved, but also a little sad, which broke my heart even more. Then she said something that left me completely paralyzed. I don't want to make mommy angry, but I don't want to go to the wedding. It was then that I realized how much the sudden reappearance of Haley and all these expectations were weighing on her. Haley, meanwhile, keeps turning up the pressure. Last night, just after all the drama, she sent me a long, guilt-ridden text. Mom, I know I've made mistakes, but you've taken everything from me. Gigi is my daughter. I carried her. I gave birth to her, and I deserve a chance to be her mother. You've poisoned her against me, and it's not fair. I implore you to come to the wedding and bring Gigi. I want to see if we can be a family again. Please don't ruin this for me. I didn't even know how to respond. On the one hand, I understand that she feels she has missed out on a lot in Gigi's life, and I'm sure that causes her pain. But on the other hand, I can't just ignore the fact that she made her own choices. Haley wasn't taken away from Gigi. She chose to walk away. She prioritized partying and a life without responsibilities over being a mother. Now, because she's about to get married, she wants to pretend that nothing happened and pretend that we're a happy family. It doesn't work like that. And James is only making the situation more complicated. He called me and tried to make me feel guilty so that I would fix everything. He kept saying things like, Haley has been working really hard to rebuild her relationship with Gigi. Can't you see that she's trying? I told him straight that rebuilding a relationship isn't about showing up with gifts or giving emotional speeches at a rehearsal dinner. It's about being there day after day, taking on the hard work that it involves. Gigi deserves consistency, not big, empty gestures to show off. Then she threw this gem at me at the end of the call. I just hope you don't regret this later. That really bothered me. Regret what exactly? Protecting Gigi, standing up for what's right, making sure my granddaughter isn't forced to participate in a situation that makes her uncomfortable? No, I'm not going to regret any of that. For now, Gigi and I have no plans to attend the wedding. I haven't given Haley a definitive answer yet because I'm still trying to figure out how to handle this without escalating the situation even further. But deep down, I know that attending alone would only create more stress for Gigi and me. Haley's anger and accusations have made it clear that she is not prepared to take responsibility for her actions. And I'm not going to allow her to use Gigi as an accessory in her happy family facade. I will keep you all informed as the situation evolves. For now, I'm focusing on Gigi and making sure she feels safe and loved. Thanks again for all your support. It means a lot to me. Update 2. Hi everyone, I'm back with another update. A lot has happened since my last post, and I'm still trying to take it all in. Get ready, because this is going to be a long one. So the wedding day has come and gone, and as expected, it was a complete disaster. At least for Haley, let me explain. After days of texting and calling back and forth, I finally broke the news to Haley that Gigi and I would not be attending the wedding. I kept it simple and straightforward. I told her that Gigi wasn't comfortable and that I didn't think it was in her best interest to be there. I also reminded Haley that this wasn't about me trying to hurt her or ruin her big day. It was about protecting Gigi. Haley's reaction was explosive. She called me immediately, shouting and crying about how selfish I was and how I was ruining her life. She accused me of trying to make her look bad in front of James and his family. She even said, "You can't stand to see me happy, can you?" That comment hurt me deeply, because it is so far from the truth. All I have ever wanted is for Haley to be happy and responsible. But she is the one who made the decisions that brought us to this point. Despite her emotional outburst, I stood my ground. I assured her that Gigi's well-being is my top priority, and that this was not about her wedding. It was about years of neglect for which she needed to take responsibility. She hung up on me, and I honestly thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. On the day of the wedding, Haley showed up at my house. Yes, you read that correctly. She showed up unannounced, in her wedding dress with tears streaming down her face. Gigi and I were in the living room when we heard the knock on the door. When I opened it and saw her standing there, I was completely stunned. She immediately started begging me to reconsider my decision. She said things like, "Mom, please, I need Gigi to be there. I can't do this without her. She's my daughter." She went on and on about how this was supposed to be the start of a new chapter for all of us and how Gigi's absence would ruin everything. Gigi, who had been sitting on the sofa, peered around the corner and saw Haley. She froze completely and clung to me as if her life depended on it. She whispered, "I don't want to go." And that was all I needed to hear. I turned to Haley and said, "You need to leave. This is not the right time or place for this conversation." Haley refused to move. She insisted that I was being unreasonable, that I was punishing her for past mistakes, and that I was depriving her of her chance to make things right. At one point, she even got down on her knees and started sobbing, saying, "I'll do anything. Please, just bring her to the wedding." It was one of the most heartbreaking and infuriating moments of my life. Heartbreaking because I could see how desperate she was, and infuriating because I still didn't understand. Showing up in a wedding dress and crying on my doorstep wasn't going to erase years of absence and neglect. In the end, I had to tell her that she needed to leave right there and then. This wasn't fair to Gigi or to me. If I really wanted to fix things, it was going to take time and effort. But her wedding day was not the right time to force the issue. Of course, she eventually left, but not without a dramatic exit. She shouted, "You ruined everything. I hope you're satisfied," as she made her way to her car. Since then, things have been very tense. James called me the next day and expressed his disappointment with how I handled the situation. He said that Haley's family dynamics were none of his family's business, and that I should have put my differences with Haley aside for the sake of the wedding. I replied directly that if he really wanted to support Haley, he would encourage her to take real responsibility instead of justifying her behavior. Gigi has been better now that the wedding is over. She seems more relaxed and hasn't mentioned the wedding since the Haley episode at the door. I'm concentrating on keeping her life as stable and happy as possible. As for Haley, I've decided to take a step back. I'm not excluding her completely, but I'm not going to keep trying so hard to please her either. Update 3. Hi everyone. I'm back with another update and wow. The last few days have been so strange, honestly. I'm still trying to process everything that's happened since my last post, but I wanted to share with you how things currently stand. As you know, Gigi and I did not attend Haley's wedding. From what I heard, the ceremony was as beautiful as you would expect. Abundant flowers, music, and those perfect moments you would see in magazines. But even with all that beauty, there was a certain tension in the air. A mutual friend who attended told me that during her speech at the reception, Haley took a moment to talk about her estrangement. She got emotional when she mentioned how difficult it has been for her to feel like a stranger in her own daughter's life. She didn't mention me by name, but it was pretty obvious who she was referring to. I wasn't surprised at all. I knew Haley would probably mention it, but hearing the story still causes some pain. I understand that she is suffering, and I know that this situation is not easy for her, but it is frustrating that she continues to present herself as the victim while completely ignoring how her own decisions led us to this point. She seems to be seeking sympathy without taking any responsibility, and that is difficult to accept. A few days after the wedding, Haley showed up at my house again, completely unannounced, which seems to have become her custom lately. This time she had a different attitude. She was still radiating the excitement of the wedding and honeymoon, but her tone was sharp and defensive. She began by questioning why I hadn't supported her on her special day, and then quickly moved on to accusing me of biasing Gigi against her. She continued to argue about how I had been the barrier between her and Gigi, and it was clear that she was looking to provoke an argument. But I wasn't going to give her the reaction she was hoping for. I remained calm and reiterated the same points I had been making from the start. This isn't about me, it's about Gigi. Her feelings and well-being are my top priority, and if Haley really wants to rebuild their relationship, it's going to take genuine effort and consistency, not just grand gestures or blaming me for everything that's happened. To my surprise, it really seemed to hit home with her. She paused in the middle of her speech, and for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I saw her drop her defensive attitude. She was silent for a few moments and then said, "I just don't know how to fix this." That moment took me completely by surprise because it was so authentic. She was no longer angry. She seemed overwhelmed, perhaps even a little fearful. I think she is finally beginning to understand that this is not something she can fix overnight or with a big, flashy gesture. In that moment, I experienced a mixture of conflicting emotions. On the one hand, I felt frustration that it had taken her so long to reach this conclusion. On the other hand, I could sense her vulnerability, and that made me feel a glimmer of hope. I explained that fixing things with Gigi starts with being present. Not just physically, but emotionally. It's about being consistent and showing day after day that you are here to stay. I suggested starting small, with regular calls and short visits, to help Gigi feel more comfortable. Haley agreed, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. I think she has finally realized how much damage her absence has caused and how difficult it will be to rebuild that trust. Part of me feels sorry for her because I know she wants to remedy the situation, but at the same time, this is the consequence of the decisions she made, and she must take responsibility for them. For now, I'm trying to remain hopeful while focusing my attention on Gigi. She's been doing well, but I know that this whole situation is still weighing on her, even if she doesn't verbalize it. My top priority is to maintain a stable and loving environment for her, while also remaining open to collaborating with Haley if she shows that she is truly committed to making things right. I explained to Haley that the first step in rebuilding her relationship with Gigi is to show up consistently. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. It's not about grand gestures or trying to force everything to work out right away. It's about being consistent day in and day out, even in the small moments that may seem insignificant, but that actually mean the world to a child. I suggested starting with small steps like regular phone calls and short visits to help Gigi gradually get used to the idea of spending more time with her mother. Haley nodded, but I could see hesitation in her gaze. I think she's realizing how much effort this process will require. She is realizing that it is not something that can be resolved with a simple apology or a showy display of affection. It will take time, patience, and a level of commitment that I'm not sure she has had to demonstrate before. And if I'm honest, part of me wonders if she is afraid of not being up to it. I don't mean to be harsh. It's just the impression she gives me. On the other hand, James has also been in touch. His tone has softened, which I sincerely appreciate. He continues to insist on family therapy, and I can understand his perspective. Honestly, I'm not at all opposed to the idea, but I made it clear to him that I need to see that Haley is truly committed to making a change before we get into something like that. Therapy is not a magic solution that will suddenly solve all problems. It is a tool, and for it to be effective, everyone involved must be prepared to face some uncomfortable truths and do the necessary work. Right now, my attention is focused on Gigi. She has shown improvement lately. She laughs more often, plays more, and generally seems lighter of spirit. But I know this situation still affects her, even if she doesn't talk about it constantly. She's just a child. She shouldn't have to deal with all this emotional baggage. It breaks my heart that she's been caught up in the middle of something so complex. But I'm doing everything I can to make sure she feels protected, loved, and supported. At the same time, I'm keeping the door open for Haley. I want them to rebuild their relationship if possible, but I also need to protect Gigi from suffering again. It's a delicate balance. Some days it feels like walking a tightrope. I'm just trying to navigate this whole situation one step at a time. As for the future, I don't know exactly what lies ahead, but I remain cautiously optimistic. Haley seems to be starting to understand how much work it will take to repair things. And James is more receptive to listening and engaging than he was before. It's a long road, and there are no guarantees, but I'm holding on to hope. If Haley stays committed and puts in consistent effort, maybe we can all find a way forward. I can't thank you enough for the support and advice you've given me. Knowing that I have the space to share and process everything has been a lifeline for me during such a turbulent period. I will keep you posted as the situation evolves, but for now, I'm just taking it one day at a time and focusing on what really matters, keeping Gigi happy and safe.